Yeah, I remember 2021, I remember it raining most of the time. And so even at the start, I think it started to rain pretty soon, and it had rained, I think, pretty good through the night leading up to it. So the ground was pretty saturated in those early first 100 miles. Um, I mean, they were both super hard. I mean, I could not I still can't like fathom what we rode through those puddles. Like, I mean, completely like
For this
my
year?
yeah, this year. Like there weren't those puddles in 2021. Everything was rideable. Like, I mean, I went down in two of those puddles and it was like I was in a swimming pool.
From KOM Cycling and Michigan Midpack Media, welcome to the Dirty Chain Podcast, the podcast that covers the cycling scene from the viewpoint of the Michigan Midpack. I am your host, Trevor, and on this episode, Michigan's coast-to-coast gravel race. 200 plus miles, starting on the banks of Lake Huron and ending at Lake Michigan, a truly unique point-to-point race, and one that I have been trying to make happen in my schedule for years now, but due to injury, pandemic, etc., this was the first year I was able to make it happen, and I picked, let's just say a wet and wild one. Being a total newbie myself to the race, I thought it would be good to enlist the help of coast-to-coast vet Nick Stanko to help me dissect this year's experience. If you don't know Nick, he is a staple in the Michigan cycling and running scene, owner of Ann Arbor Running Company, race director of the Watermoo Gravel Race, director of Michigan Cyclocross Series, not to mention a constant top contender in basically whatever event he throws his hat into. Nick lays down some context from years in the past, and we definitely get into this year's race with its torrential downpours, endless deep puddles, and the destruction of bike parts. As Nick and I discuss, this year presented some unique challenges, and I don't think there was any perfect solution to those challenges. If you were signed up and you chose to sit out this year because of the weather, I think that was the right choice. If you had to DNF during the race for whatever reason, I also think that was the right choice. And if by some miracle you were able to get to the finish, well, I think that was the right choice. But maybe that was the dumber of all choices, honestly. But a huge congrats to all who trained and prepared for months and months for this long adventure, whether you started it or you didn't. Congrats to those who started the day, and congrats to the 100-plus finishers of what turned out to be one of the toughest days I've had on a bike. And also thank you to everyone who helped put on the event, the volunteers and the Michigan Adventure Racing crew. Despite all the rain and the weather, I felt like it was truly a well-run and smooth event. And real quick, before we get into this, I think I still have coast-to-coast brain, and I screwed up the microphone on this whole interview. And I used the internal computer mic on my side instead of my good podcast mic, so I sound kind of funny and in a big room. But hopefully it doesn't distract. It's still clear, and it was still a great conversation. So enough of that. Let's get right into this, the 2024 edition of Michigan's Coast to Coast Gravel Grinder. Well, Nick, let's get into this. I don't want to take too much of your time, and we can chat for about other things forever. But
Yeah.
I want to talk about coast to coast. I want to talk about what happened last weekend. It's Wednesday. It's 4 days removed from our 204-mile journey across the state of Michigan. Um, I thought you would be the perfect person to talk to about this. One, because you're pretty well known in the Michigan cycling scene, do a lot of racing, you put on a lot of races, and you're just a staple. But not only that, you have a history with coast to coast, maybe more than anyone else. I'm not sure about that, but so let's lay the groundwork about that, about your history with coast to coast. How many times have you done it? What number was it this year? When did you start racing this pretty unique race in Michigan?
Yeah, this was my sixth time, and
Okay.
there's been six of them. The first year was in May, so it was a different. Oh, I'd almost say it was a different event with it being in May versus June, and it was about, I think, late May maybe. So not only, I think, did people have a harder time with training for it because you have one less month of good weather to train for it. And then the weather's totally different. And the sand, if you have sand, is totally different at that point of the year. So yeah, and I've kind of just latched onto it, I guess, like a lot of endurance athletes, we're creatures of habits. And so it's just something that's on my calendar. And another big piece of it, it's a family event for us. So my wife and daughter have been there every year, and they're kind of at the aid stations, and we've got it down to like kind of NASCAR speeds and have fun with it. And they enjoy it. So they're not cyclists, so it's not like taking away from their cycling time or anything. Obviously, they have other stuff going on, but they devote, that weekend pretty much every year to be out there helping out.
I had I don't think I realized that the first one was in May. That could really,
Hmm.
I mean, we'll talk all about the weather, but I feel like the weather in May is a little more temperamental than, say, June. Um,
You
but yeah, and it can get kind of cold in May too.
right. Even the end of May, you can, yeah, have some
Yeah, I
cold
mean,
weather.
yeah, and yeah, and I mean, I think just in that little bit that you talked about, you you already opened up the conversation about how important support is on a race like this. Um, it's necessary. I mean, it's 204 miles. It's there are there are spots where the race has water and other things, but they require you to, if you don't have your own support in case you break down, in case something happens, then you are required to like rent support or something. What is like
Yeah,
they
yeah.
kind of have like some people there ready to support you, and so I think yeah, they provide you with that support, but you have to pay for it. But it is an important aspect of the race. Um, so you have done it 6 times now. Would you say that every year is a little unique unto itself?
Yeah, it's every year has been totally different, and the factor is the weather. When you're out, if it was 100-mile race, I think the weather wouldn't be as much of a factor. But since it's so long, that's the element I think that changes things, and especially in Michigan, that second half with it being so sandy, um, the weather leading up to the race impacts the race and what it's going to be like. And the stand isn't horrible. I think people maybe sometimes get a little too worked up about it because they do a really good job of like not having just miles and miles of sand. They break it up. So it's, once you get through a section, you can kind of regroup and then get ready for the next section that that what's second to third leg.
Hmm. Yeah. And of course, like I think sand is what everyone talks about. They talk about what, tires. Everyone says you need to run like huge tires, but the 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 uh, the course is known to be sandy, but like you said, it's doesn't. Well, I take it back. I don't really know because
Right.
I didn't encounter any bit of dry anything that entire day, but I am familiar with some of those spots. But this year like, yeah, so it wasn't dry. It was its own set of unique challenges. As I explained it to people, I saw it in two very specific pieces. One of the easiest 100 miles I've ever done, and one of the hardest 100 miles I've ever done. Would you agree with that assessment?
Absolutely. And a lot of people, you see comment like that was the fastest century I've ever done. And then they still have to do another century after that. And as you just pointed out, it's probably the hardest century that you'll ever do. Maybe the hardest and slowest, at least in a race. Yeah. And so
Yeah,
it sets you up in a weird position where you get to that halfway point and you're just like, man, this is awesome. I'm like crushing it. And then it just totally flips
yeah.
and you start getting crushed.
Before I'm getting ahead of myself and I'm saying all these things, but I do want to back up a little bit because we were texting a little bit back and forth the week leading up to Coast, and the weather. I think every day it started to look worse and worse. And it was going from like a 20% chance of rain, 30%. And it's tough. People have to understand it's very difficult to figure out the weather forecast for across the entire state. So I don't know what you do, Nick, but I was like looking at all these different points throughout the route and looking at the weather forecast for every single one of these different points. And some of them would look okay, and then some of them would look. But as we're getting closer and closer to Saturday, it was starting to turn from like a 50% chance to a 100% chance of not only rain but storms. They were calling for hail and strong winds. So you were texting me saying, what do you think they're going to cancel? Do you think should we just ride on Sunday? What was your thoughts going into it? Were you hesitant about the weather, or were you thinking I'm gonna push through no matter what?
Yeah, I kind of just gave up towards the end there of like even thinking about it and worrying about it and just be like, well, let's see what the race does. I felt bad for them because they were in a tricky spot. Especially, you have people out there for like, I was looking at the results this morning to see like who they kind of put in after the fact because they shut down the timing, I think around like 10. And, people
Yeah,
were out there for like 18 hours. That can get scary, dangerous. I think it ended up being like, what's the start look like? And the start was fine, so they let us go. And then at that point, it was kind of on the riders to make decisions. I think the biggest thing that I thought about was like, so we're out there, it gets down to like 10 guys and it starts like storming and lightning. We have to look at each other and kind of decide as a group, like, hey, are we stopping? Are we not? Like, that just gets a weird dynamic, I think. And I've never been in that position before,
yeah,
where like, hey, maybe five of us are like, yeah, we need to stop, and five aren't. And then what do you do? I don't know.
yeah, yeah. I thought the same thing. I was I was pretty worked up and nervous about what the weather would do. Um, I was I was I went into it a little stubborn, like, no, I want this. I want to get this done. And a little bit of because this year I really wanted to do lumberjack and coast back to back, and thinking that was like a goal of mine. I want to not only want to do them, I wanted to race them hard. And if that didn't happened, I would have been pretty bummed. But to start the 100 miles, most of the 100 miles was dry. The first 100, I was like, well, at least we got 100 miles out of this.
Right.
But yeah, I definitely thought like, what does happen when or if it starts to get dangerous, and it is a few of us. Like, are people going to say, no, I don't care, I'm going to keep racing, or are we going to be smart and stop racing? Yeah, it was just a huge unknown. But
Right.
I was kind of like you. I was like, you know what? I just got to go out there and start it, and then see what happens.
Right. Yeah. No, and we got, I mean, at least the front pack there, we got lucky. We didn't get caught in it. It was pouring rain, but there was, I don't think I ever heard lightning or thunder throughout for us.
Nope. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it was pouring. The sound of the rain in the woods when we were like in the Manistee National Forest, and it's just like it was almost deafening. I couldn't believe how loud it was going through the trees. And that's when you realize, oh yeah, it's really raining hard.
Right.
But okay, so there were of course, some hesitancies. I'm sure everyone was in the same boat, right? Like everyone, I wouldn't be surprised. I wonder what the did not start amount was, because I was pretty impressed with the amount of people at the beginning. I felt like spirits were pretty high
Hmm.
at the start line. There were a lot of people, but I'm sure that weather forecast scared a few people away. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, like I was impressed with the beginning. I thought people were there to give it a go. Um, and like you said, the first 100 was quick, and then it just started. I think it was like immediate. It was wild how immediate it was as soon as we got out of it would be the second aid station, how quick that rain just started dumping on us, like immediately. Is that right? Is that what you remember
Yeah.
too?
Oh yeah. No, and I think we got a couple sprinkles beforehand, and I think you mentioned like in the group, like, oh, if that's all we got, that'd be good.
Oh yeah.
We and then after we got out of that checkpoint, it just opened up.
Yeah. Um, as for my race, and we'll get to your part pretty soon here, but I think that is where I I knew, talking to you, talking to other people, that second checkpoint, because a lot there's a checkpoint around 50 miles, there's a checkpoint around 100 miles, and some people stop at 50 and re-up their bottles and meet their support crew. I knew that a lot of people in the front would not stop and just do the first 100 in a one big push. So I was prepared for that, and Rachel, my support crew, was there ready to go at the second checkpoint, and I think I was in and out in seconds. I mean, Nick, you were the first one out. I mean, you were you were lightning fast. But I knew that was really important for me to stick with. If I wanted to stick with the front group, I had to get in and out of that aid station, and I did. And then it was, I don't know, 10 of us or 8 of us or something coming out of there. The rain starts, and then I realize, oh, I think I might be overdoing it physically a little bit. So it was a combination of all these things of rain, and then me realizing maybe I was overreaching a little bit, and I think I hung on for like 15 miles or something, just trying to get every ounce of like free miles that I could in the pack. And then I made a decision. I was like, I got to cut the cord. This is going to be worse than good for me at this point. And I dropped off, and it wasn't even any of the tough stuff. I think there were some hills, but it had started to rain pretty well, so that was kind of a mental thing. But I knew, I was like, I have to dial it back and ride my own pace. And it was a bummer because I was like, that's going to be about 5 hours alone. If maybe 5 hours alone, unless someone catches me and then I can ride with them. But making that choice was a difficult one, but I believe it was the right one. When I came off, I think I had about 30 to 40 minutes of like, I thought I was bonking pretty hard, or and knowing I had like 5 hours left, I'm like, this is going to be a long, long day. And then the guy that was fifth, I think he took a little longer at that 100 mile aid station. He came by and he was riding pretty strong. He's like, jump on my wheel. I'm like, man, I can't even jump on your wheel here. I gotta just like figure my own stuff out right now.
Right.
But it did, then it came around, and then I felt okay. And then I rode pretty steady for the rest of it, but still alone. And that was, I think, something I knew was going to probably would happen, would be the second half would be pretty isolated and alone. But that's a tough place to be in for sure.
Right. Yeah, no, and you go through these rough patches, and the more you do it, you figure out like it most likely will end and you'll get back going again.
Yeah.
But you just got to get through it.
I read your race report on Strava, and I've read like previous ones you've put of previous years. I don't think that's necessarily unique to my race. You've had like, haven't you had some issues with maybe fueling or heat or something in the past where you've kind of had to get pushed through some of those moments at Coast to Coast?
Yeah, I think most have been pretty rough, I would say, that second half.
Yeah.
And the heat's got me big time there at that event. I haven't mastered that one out. And that kind of keeps me coming back, is like I got to figure out the heat, and so when it is a warm year, it's just another opportunity to try to figure it out.
So I'm going to confess something, but leading into this, I kind of, probably wrongly, but I thought to myself, if it comes down to a heat battle, I think I could outlast Nick Stanko. and then when I kept seeing that we were supposed to have rain, and I was like, well, there that goes. Like that's going to lead into his strengths more than mine.
Yep, no, your odds increase with the heat, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And I like warm weather. I'd much rather it be summer than heat or winter. But yeah, I haven't mastered that one yet. And but
it's tough though. Like what do you do to master that? I mean, there's so many different variables, but how do we train for? I mean, that 200-mile distance is just I don't know what. I mean, like most things are around 100 miles. You're thinking 5, 6, 7 hours. When you're doubling that, it's such a question mark. I was thinking going into this, I've done some big events, I've done some big rides, but I don't think I had ever raced 200 miles, or I guess like raced 10 to 12 hours. I don't think I've ever done a true like race that long. So for me, that was a huge, like, I don't know how my body's going to react. I've ridden that long several times, but racing and riding to that level, I've never done that. How do you, it's almost like you can train as much as you think, like you can do as much as you think is what you should be doing. But when you get to it, you just, who knows if that's what you should have been doing. I don't know. Like what's your thoughts on that? Like how you approached it, because you do all sorts of, you do cyclocross, which is what, like 30 to 40 minute all out efforts. And what a different contrast to a 205-mile race across the state.
Right. Yeah. And I think I was talking with one of my athletes who actually did coast to coast, and we were talking just kind of going into it. And I think one thing I've learned over the years is like, yeah, it's good to have a plan. But you can't be like so fixated and rigid on that plan, because you just can't predict, especially in that second half, what's going to happen. So like I have that third checkpoint, I've learned to just have a shit ton of options because I don't know what I'm going to like and be able just to grab something. Oh, that looks good. That looks good. And so like this year I had a Snickers and a Coke, and then I stuffed my hydration pack just with a variety of stuff because I don't know what I'm going to be able to stomach.
Yeah. Yeah. A bunch of options. I mean, I think not only just fueling options, but I guess you need to have a bunch of options to fix your bike if needed, and then just options of, unfortunately, like you probably need a bunch of bailout options too.
Right.
Know where that comes, but yeah, it's I think people, especially in gravel cycling, like Unbound is like the biggest race that people think about. That's also, I was thinking about the comparing the two that we did. So Unbound, I've never done it, but it's another 200-mile gravel race, and then Coast to Coast. And for me, like I probably want to do Unbound someday. I mean, it seems like something that it would be good to check off the list, but Coast to Coast attracts me a little bit more because of the unique features of the state and living in Michigan. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what my point is, but I just I just see those two as like, it's interesting to compare the two, I guess.
Yeah.
And the vibe of Coast to Coast is completely different. There's not very many people and it's pretty chill, but it's still, I don't know. It was something, especially this year. It was something.
Yeah, and I mean I've being the sixth time and seeing kind of the race evolve where like the first year we all stopped at the first checkpoint, and and maybe it was down to like 3 or 4 guys, now like we get to 100 miles and the group is still like 20 guys. And so it's definitely, obviously, they talk about the spirit of gravel is gone or whatever. But it's fun to have now just like 20 guys rolling in a checkpoint too.
Yeah.
So I think maybe every year the group will get stronger and stronger, as you go throughout the race.
Yeah. So after checkpoint 2 for you, how long did that front group stay together? Take us through your like second half of that race.
Yeah, and that was yeah, like you said, it started to pour. I had taken my glasses off and kind of stuck them in the front of my kit, and at some point, maybe like 70 miles or something, they popped out and I lost them. And the other year it poured was 2021, and I rode most of that race without my glasses because they were just getting so like caked with mud. My eyes were fine. But this year, maybe it's because now that I think about it, maybe because the group was together longer and we were trying to draft off each other still and just getting like all that mud in our
Yeah.
faces. But the point where you get on that bike path, I don't know what mile it is, probably before you hit the ORV trails, you get on this bike path that crosses under a highway. I had to stop at that point and just take my water bottle and kind of squirt out my eyes because they were getting so uncomfortable. And then luckily the group wasn't going that fast or hard, so I was able to catch back up to the group. But that was my struggle this year, was kind of my eyes just getting caked. And then when you got into like the puddles and the off-road stuff, it was just hard to see and uncomfortable. And then the first time I kind of had a mechanical in a race, so every puddle that I went through, I could just tell my shifting was getting worse and worse. And I kind of just, okay, I think this is going to be a gear that I'll be able to use throughout the race. And so by the time I was to checkpoint 3, I was just down to 1 gear. And I do single speed and cross or cycle cross, so I kind of like have a feel for it. And I had to walk some of the hills coming out of Big M. But at that point, I was fine with it, and obviously on my own and could do my own race. Um,
I wrote I did like real quick. I wrote a note to talk about eyes because I saw Chris Carter. He came in second, and he immediately went to the ER because he had a bunch of sand and junk in his eyes, and I think they had to clean it out for him. Um,
yeah.
and I took my sunglasses off pretty quick after the rain started because I couldn't see anything with them on, and they were just so much mud and just the water and everything. But man, I was having the same issues. I mean, just had like one of my eyes was just completely like sand and everything, and probably doesn't help to have contacts too, where it
Oh,
gives it
yeah.
something else
Oh,
to collect on. But once I finished, Rachel was like, "You're." I mean, it just like got worse and worse. It was just bloodshot, and it was not comfortable by any means. It was pretty bad. And then the so it's like, yeah, you're working through mechanicals of your body and then also of your bike. And I think shifting, besides brakes, it sounded like shifting was a pretty common one. I run a 2 by, and I lost the ability to go into the big ring pretty early in that second half push. But like you, I kind of felt like, well, I don't know at this point if I need the big ring. I'm not going to be
right.
trying to hold 23, 24 miles an hour on the flats. It was pretty hilly everywhere. And the bike seemed to be okay in small ring up front, small, like the extreme. So I was like, I can just kind of keep doing this. And it worked fine for me. I didn't even try to figure out the front ring situation. I just rode small front ring the rest of the time, and it was fine. But besides the shifting for you, were there any other mechanical things?
No, I mean brakes were obviously wearing out, and they weren't completely gone, but they were shot. And yeah, other than that, bottom bracket I think is shot too. So the bike is definitely in the shop, and I don't know what it's going to cost, but yeah, and that's the hard thing. Like you sign up for these races, you invest so much time, and I know there are a lot of people that didn't even start, and then you trash your bike. And 2021 when it poured out most of the race, I got really sick afterwards from like the farm runoff.
Ugh, ugh.
And
I
so
was I
like
was worried about this. Oh my
I
god.
was so worried, and my stomach has been a wreck the last few days, and I'm just praying like I can get through this one. And I seem to be okay so far as we're talking right now. But
Man.
so yeah, you want good weather, and at the same time we're all stubborn and we're willing to go through this. So I don't know.
And it makes you think like I don't know if there's a right answer to do you attempt it or do you not attempt it? I mean, I think if you
Right?
decided not to do it, like there were probably more good reasons to not attempt it than to attempt it.
Right, right. That's a great point. And anybody that stopped or didn't start, I'm like, I get it. Like you probably made a good call. And then
Right.
anybody that finished and like they have these awesome stories, you made a good call. So it's so hard to say like should you or should you not? I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. And I don't know. Yeah, stubbornness is a great way to put it. Um, I did. I mean, I think it got to a point. I mean, you get through Big M, the last aid station, so that's like mile 169. I
Hmm.
still had a little bit of brakes. I had enough brakes. I knew they were getting bad, and there's a hill coming out of Big M before you get to just basically the last push on gravel roads. Um, but there's this pretty steep hill coming out of it that they warn you about, that there's signs that people have really hurt themselves on. So I knew I needed some brakes for this, or I needed to walk it. And I was like going down, I was like, okay, I got brakes. I just ride my brakes. And then immediately the next time I needed brakes, after that hill, I was like, oh, that was the last of my brakes. I don't have brakes anymore. So I just used them all up on that last hill coming out of Big M. Um, but but I knew unless like something catastrophically happened to my bike and I could not ride it, which at that point I thought would not happen. I knew I had to push and finish it.
Mhm.
And I'm sure you think about it. It gets sometimes when you ride in the front of these races and things don't go exactly as planned. It's easy to want to pull the plug because it wasn't the race that you thought it was going to be. But then I feel like that is disrespectful to the people that are taking that are in the middle or the back of the race and pushing through everything to get to that finish, and the finish is the goal. And so, I mean, one, I wanted to finish for myself, but two, like, I don't want to quit something just because it may not have gone exactly the way I wanted it to, when I know that there's probably people that might not be able to finish because they had to cut the race short, or they didn't get through a checkpoint at the right time. At least I got through the checkpoints at the right time, and my bike's working. Like, the only reason I wouldn't finish is just because I don't want to. I guess I don't
Right.
know. But yeah, it did get to a point where, I mean, I knew I was doing damage to the bike, but I was going to finish no matter what. Um, and yeah, but you talked about 2021. What kind of comparisons to this year, to 2020? So 2021 was another famously wet year. That same thing. A lot of people DNF'd. What do you see one being worse than the other? What comparisons do you make to this year versus 2021?
Yeah, I remember 2021, I remember it raining most of the time. And so even at the start, I think it started to rain pretty soon, and it had rained, I think, pretty good through the night leading up to it. So the ground was pretty saturated in those early first 100 miles. Um, so I mean, they were both super hard. I mean, I could not, I still can't like fathom what we rode through those puddles. Like, I mean, completely like
For this
my
year?
yeah, this year. Like, there weren't those puddles in 2021. Everything was rideable. Like, I mean,
Let's
I went down in two of those puddles, and it was like I was in a swimming pool. I
yeah,
mean,
let's
completely covered.
yeah, I want to kind of explain, like, so I mean, we're 150 miles in maybe when this
Yeah.
happens, and there is a stretch, and I was very familiar with this stretch. I've ridden it a couple other times, and I knew going into it that that there are a lot of low points where, and that's basically where the sand, where it's super sandy, these sand
Yep.
pits on a dry year. But it's I guess like ORV type road or
Yeah.
forest road or something. I mean, it's kind of two track, and the rain just, it wasn't just collecting in some of these low spots. There were points where the entire quote unquote road was just all water, and of course it's dirty water, so you can't tell if it's 2 inches deep or 2 feet deep. And that went on for quite a few miles that way. And
Right.
like you were saying, you went in, it was like a swimming pool. It was a game the whole time. You're trying to figure out, because a lot of times there was no way to ride around. There was no space. There's like water going right up to the basically thick woods.
Yeah.
So you were playing a game of like, where do I ride this puddle, and hopefully I can get through without it just like quicksand stopping me in the middle of it. I mean, I
And
think go ahead.
yeah, and I don't know why, but I was just thinking of the people behind us. I'm like, oh man, these people got to go through this, and it's like, oh, I felt bad for. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, this is horrible, and I've doing it 6 times now. That section I think has stayed pretty consistent throughout the years, so it was nice when I knew the end was coming. I'm like, oh God, thank God, it's almost over.
Yeah, you can see like you can see the clearing a little bit, and there I think there is like an overlook right before you pop out and you go down
Yeah.
into that like that low bridge road. And yeah, when I saw that, I was like, thank goodness. There was a there. I will say that there was a moment in some of that uh, forest road area, and I was super glad I wasn't with anyone else because I could just ride at my own pace. I didn't have to worry about trying to like stay with a group. I don't even know if that point there was a group going through that section, but I was glad that I could just ride it at my own pace, and I was having fun for about 10 minutes, and then I immediately wasn't having fun. But yeah, it's kind of hard to. I was trying to find pictures as I'm riding through it. I'm hoping because I wasn't stopping to take a picture, but I was like, man, I hope someone's getting some pictures or video of this because this is pretty insane.
Yeah, there's been some good stuff on Facebook of like videos and just the water was like a river coming down these hills at some points.
Well, that yeah, like before this whole that Pine River corridor kind of I think they call it. There was a bit before that where we're actually going down a pretty good hill on one of these two tracks, and it's like the water just totally washed out all of and it was all running straight down the two track, and the only place to ride was basically it like well
In it.
I'm gonna ride in the middle of this new river that was just formed.
Right.
Yeah, but I guess the good part about that is once you get out of that and then you get into Big M and you have to ride some single track, which was garbage. I mean, there
Yeah,
was
from the 100 kind of going through there. Oh my God, it was so chewed up.
and that was more mud than
Yeah.
sand too. And yeah, I think I ended up walking some of that as well, just because it was so slippery and
Hmm.
steep. But getting out of that, that then you just kind of have a little more of a basic gravel route back into Ludington.
Yeah.
There was that one road. I think it was like less than 10 miles to go, and we're in the farms again. Like we're out of the woods back into
Hmm.
like these farms right before Ludington, and it was so awful. I don't know if you remember. I think we're going south on it, and I was like a mile stretch of just
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
like maybe a
And then you
couple
make
inches
a,
of mud or something, or I don't know.
and then when you get to the end of that road, you make a right, I think. And
Yep.
yeah, it was just like, I don't like peanut butter kind of, but it wasn't like sticking to your bike or anything, but
No.
like there were no good lines and like it was just bike tire paths everywhere, on this whole road because it was so soft.
The and you're so close to the finish too, which is it was a
Mhm.
real kick in the in the teeth. Like you're at, not only that, but there was there was a headwind when you
Yeah.
went south, so we were dealing with that. They're like, you're so close, and I'm trying to make you get to these points in races, and I have to set like little goals. And one of my goals was, okay, I'm at this point. I don't want anyone else to catch me before the end. And another goal I had is, okay, I think I can get under 12 hours if I keep it at this pace. And there were so many times where you would run into like, okay, we're out of all the bad stuff. I think I'm good. I can keep it at this pace. And then I would turn and be a headwind, and I would go below the
Right.
the pace I wanted to, or we'd get to a road like that, and so it was tough. But I did get under 12 hours, but
Yeah.
You finished on the podium. You were fourth. How did that? So it broke up around mile 150. When did you guys all kind of?
Yeah. So when it started to get like super nasty in those puddles, Tyler took off and he was gone. Like couldn't see him anymore. And I was at the back of the group. I think I was in fifth place at that time. And it got strung out. And so he was gone. But I could see Adam and Chris, and I think Cameron was the other guy with us at the time. Um, and then I ended up getting past Cameron and Adam, and kept Chris in sight for a while. So it was the two of us. And then I went down, I think, in two puddles, and then he was gone at that point. And then I don't think I ever looked back, so I never knew if anybody was close behind me. But I was fading and kind of getting discouraged. And so I'm like, screw it, I'm going to stop and take a pee. And so I did. And then Adam passed me, the guy that finished third.
Okay.
And at that point, I was kind of regrouping and feeling kind of good. So, that I wasn't like crumbling at the end like some years I have been.
Yeah.
I was just able to kind of ride. And I don't know about you, but like passing those 100-mile people are just, I think, well, the first year I don't think they had the 100, and I can't remember at what point those races kind of now that converge those
Sure.
last like 30 miles. But I don't know, that helps me a ton, passing those people and just saying hi and
Yeah.
encouraging them, like, good job, keep it up, and it's amazing what that can do for your energy.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. That I gained a lot from that. And it's it is lonely. I mean, it's
Hmm.
especially like the weather that we were dealing with. It can be. I think for me, it was a really hard mental game that I had to play to really push through the end half of the race. But getting to Big M and then seeing more people and knowing you're at the end of of I mean basically the last push of the race, is what I needed mentally to get me to the finish.
Right.
Um, yeah, I hadn't really seen anyone from our race since like mile 120 maybe.
Hmm.
And but I was concerned. Like, I don't know what I thought. I mean, I think I thought when I dropped off the group around a mile like 115 or 120 that there was certainly going to be a group of dudes like coming in hot. Like maybe took a little bit more time and grouped
Hmm.
up, and maybe another, because there were so many strong guys there, strong people. And I thought, oh, certainly there's another group of 10 like that are going to come up on me, and hopefully I can stay with them. And then you get several miles down, and you don't see anyone, you don't see anyone, you don't see anyone. And I'm like, I don't know if anyone's coming. When I
Yeah.
got to Big M, I said to Rachel, my wife, I was like, is there any way that you can look at the tracking and tell me and text me when the next guy comes through? Or because I mean it's difficult because there's 100-mile people and 200-mile people
Hmm.
all kind of mixed together, so you wouldn't really know. And I thought, like, maybe if the tracking works, it was pouring rain too, and I didn't want her to have to stick around there longer than she had to. And she said she didn't think that the way that it updated the tracking, that it didn't update that way. You had to actually like go into each person and then look at the times. And so she's like, I don't think that's gonna work. I was like, all right, whatever. I just wanted to have like some peace of mind that I didn't have someone like right on my ass. I get not a minute into Big M, and I get a text, and she goes, "The next guy's through," and I'm like, "You gotta be kidding me! You gotta be kidding me!" So I'm pushing through. I'm looking back constantly. I get through Big M. I don't see anyone. I'm passing some 100-milers, and I get to some pretty big stretches. I'm looking back. I'm not seeing anyone. I'm like, I don't know, but you don't like. it's deceiving too. A long road that you think would be a couple minutes, it could be 30 seconds, that
Uh,
someone's there. So I started to feel pretty good. And it gave me a lot of motivation to like really kind of push myself from there to the end. And I was trying to keep it steady and ride hard. And man, I was looking behind me until that last like Lakeshore Drive in Ludington was that last road. I think that's what it's
uh-huh.
called. And
Yeah.
I kept looking behind me the whole time. I get to the end, and she's like, "Oh, I think that was a 100 miler. I don't think a 200 miler was." She's like, "I don't think another 200 miler can come for like another 30 minutes."
Yeah, I don't for us when we were down to five at the front, it was hard to draft off anybody. So like there were points where we were all spread out on the road and like, maybe let gaps open up.
Yeah,
And so I think that kind of played in the favor of, being alone. You didn't have that group like, coming behind you,
right.
rotating pace line. Everybody was spread out. There was no way to almost work together that second half.
Yeah, and I had tried to prepare myself. I knew that the second half would be, even if you're with people, like you said, I didn't think it would be a lot of that stuff. You can't really work together.
Hmm.
But I knew it would be a lonely second half, and it definitely was. Um, one thing I wrote down to talk about was aero bars,
Hmm.
and I think my brother Brady, we were just talking about the finish, and he goes, "How many of the guys before you were using aero bars?" I said, "Huh, I don't know." So I'm going through Rob's pictures looking. I said, "Everyone. They all had aero bars, and I didn't."
I was going to comment. I think you were maybe the first guy without aero bars, so you won the non-aero bar division of Coast to Coast.
Well, I made that joke, and thank you. But I'm trying to decide if I it's like winning the biggest idiot award, maybe.
Right. Yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah, I think I don't know, and maybe as I was talking to my brothers, I was trying to figure out, well, why don't I use aero bars? One, it's something that I'm not used to at this point, so it would take, I don't know, I would have to start using them like all season and just start training with them and figuring out my position and blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. But then a part of me, maybe it's like ego. It's just like I don't want
Mhm.
those stupid looking things on my bike, and I want to see how good I can do without like the aid of aero bars. But then when you're in a situation where you're like, oh, I'm in like the front group with all these people, and then I get popped off the back, and then I start thinking about, well, what are the differences? What, like, yes, super strong guys, yes, I understand that, but like, what are some things that I could do different? Oh, maybe I should have used aero bars.
Right.
I mean, what
Yeah,
I know you have some different. What are your thoughts on that? Like on the aero bar
I think
conversation?
I think I've used them two out of the four times maybe at Coast to Coast. Um, maybe three, but definitely two I've used them, both the rain years. Yeah, I kind of the same thought that you had. Like, I don't want an advantage. I want to just have this, like, okay, if somebody beats me because they're a better cyclist, yeah, that's fine. But when somebody beats me, well, when they have aero bars, yeah, because they beat me because they have aero bars. But I think it's becoming. I don't know. I still struggle with it. I was talking to Jason Lowitz about it, and he was on a ride, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna just beat you by 30 minutes because I have aero bars," and that kind of like sunk in. Like, yeah, that's true. And I guess if a race allows it, it's part of the race,
Yeah,
and for me, it's so much more comfortable. Like I can sit in those things and you kind of just lay down and relax. The years I don't use aero bars, I feel much more like trashed.
hmm. Yeah.
because you don't have that extra position kind of just to get down and relax. And it's faster significantly,
Yeah.
you know, I'd say easily 1 to 2 miles an hour faster.
That's yeah. And I want to be clear. I don't think I got beat by people. I don't
Yeah,
think the
right.
people in front of me beat me solely because of aero bars. Like,
Yeah.
but could I personally have gone faster with aero bars? Yeah, maybe. So, but it is. I don't know. It's like there's so many elements to doing well in a race, and it's just equipment is one of them. And like you said,
Hmm.
if they let you do it, then I guess for a race like coast to coast, it makes way more sense to me than maybe a shorter one. I mean, anything shorter than 100 miles, I don't know. I obviously I still struggle with the idea of aero bars, but I may have to, I may have to adapt. I may have to like,
Yeah, and I bet it wouldn't take you that long to get used to. I don't know, but
yeah,
it's definitely, yeah, something. And like for Watermoo that I put on, it's 111 miles, and I was like, let's make this race no aero bars. So that's a rule. There's no aero bars in that race. And obviously, I think I struggle with that even because like some of the slower people who are out there maybe for like 7, 8 hours,
yeah,
like, that'd be nice for them to have aero bars. So maybe it's something that like now there's two waves for that race. There's like a 6:11 wave and there's a 7:11 wave. And so the 7 a.m. wave we'll call it the competitive race. So maybe that wave is no aero bars. And then the 6 a.m. wave where people are out there just to complete it, use whatever you want.
yeah.
You know?
I totally understand that. I know that people use it for comfort, for like different positions for their hands, so their hands aren't like cramping or going numb, or even people
Right.
trying to rehab injuries will be using aero
Mm.
bars that can't really like hold the bars the same way. So I get it. I think there's a place for it, just not at the front of the race. No, I'm joking.
Well, yeah, then you have your unbound, theory of like, yeah, nobody can use aero bars at
Yeah.
unbound,
Well, yeah, and yeah, like
or
what
at the front.
I think didn't Wakely win with no aero bars when coast to
Hmm.
coast last year with no aero bars?
Yep.
That's not a good test subject though of no aero bars and still able to win because you're you're comparing
Right.
someone that's a monster on the
Yep.
bike and then
Yeah, and that was
but
part of like last year. I didn't use aero bars, and I
okay,
knew he was racing. And if I don't, if I got lucky and was able to compete with Jordan, I don't want to beat him because I have aero bars. I would have just
yeah,
it wasn't
yeah,
fair.
yeah.
I don't know.
I was pretty aero bars or not. I was very impressed with the strength of all you guys at the front. I mean, Tyler, holy moly,
Hmm.
what a ride he had. Chris rode super strong. I mean, I thought I kind of thought with the rain and it being a cooler year that I knew you would do really really well. And back on the podium, congrats on that. I mean
Thanks.
that's super great. And Cameron, I know he did well last year, and I rode with him Dirty 130. I knew he's a super strong guy, so I knew he would
Hmm.
be right there as well. But yeah, it was fun. I brought this up, and maybe the last thing we can talk about, but I brought this up earlier. But it was one of my goals was not only to ride Lumberjack and Coast to Coast, but to race them pretty hard. And I accomplished that. I think maybe I had some pretty lofty goals, but I still feel like looking back, I accomplished what I wanted to accomplish. You also did those two races, and Lumberjack is a 7-hour effort the week before a 11 to 12-hour effort of coast to coast. How did you feel going into coast to coast after Lumberjack? Do you think it hurt you, or do you think it didn't really matter? Or yeah, what was your thoughts on the whole LumberCoast experience?
Yeah, I think just now, like, I think maybe like I'll say like 6, 7 years. I guess maybe I can define myself as a cyclist coming from a running background. And it's cool because I still feel like I'm improving. So like 2 years ago, I don't think I could have done that double, or done it well,
Sure.
just harder to recover and whatnot. But just as you put more miles in and get stronger on the bike, obviously you can recover quicker. And yeah, I was happy with both. I think my mountain bike skills, I don't know, that race, I think I talk to people and I almost think it's like 50-50, like skills fitness. It's like those guys up front at Lumberjack, I don't think they touch their brakes once. They're just so smooth and have the confidence to get through those turns and stuff. And yeah, I guess going into coast to coast, I think it was almost kind of a good thing because it kind of toned down my like uh, I don't know, eagerness, my aggression. I don't know if not aggression is the right word, but just like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
intensity to go into the race. So like those first 100 miles, I really tried to play it smart, and it helped big time. So you're always learning, and trying to not be a knucklehead out there and make stupid moves or be on the front and putting down like big efforts when it's kind of pointless that first half of that race.
Oh, I tried to never be in the front that the first half of that race. Like I was like, I'm going to try to hide in the back as long as I possibly can because why do it? And there's that one push that Tyler made right before the
Hmm.
100 miles stop that I was like, okay, this might, and you closed it. Um, but then I knew that probably that effort would pop some people off the back. So I was like, I got to be far enough up the front to make sure that I'm not gonna get get popped off the back as well. But
Yeah.
yeah, the I liked. I think I would do lumberjack and coast to coast again. I mean, I liked that. It was a challenge to complete and ride both of those pretty hard. Well, let me ask you this: did you have coast to coast in the back of your mind when you were racing or managing your effort for lumberjack? Did you
Mhm.
have were you thinking through that at all, or were you just riding lumberjack as hard as you could?
Uh, Looking back, I don't think I was thinking about coast to coast at all.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah.
Me
And
neither.
yeah, I think, it's doable, obviously, the double. It's fun. They're different events. Like or Lumberjack is so punchy,
Yeah.
so it's not a steady effort by any means. And my third lap of Lumberjack was kind of a ride. I was pretty toast after two, and just every time I didn't have to pedal that third lap, I didn't, like any
Yeah.
slight downhill, I was coasting and trying to save everything for those uphills. But then and then I didn't do much the following week, just rode easy. And so almost kind of going into coast to coast, I didn't know how I felt, at those higher efforts, and just kind of had to be like, okay, let's see what I got.
Same. I mean, I really took it easy after lumberjack and barely rode, but yeah, it was kind of a question mark, and I felt good once things started amping up. Um, but I do wonder if um, if well, it's probably not even a hard question. Certainly, my legs would have been fresher if I didn't do a 7 hour hard effort the week before coast to coast. I
Hmm.
mean, I think that's. Do I feel like I recovered enough to do coast to coast? Yes, but could I have been a little more fresh and maybe held on a little longer, or probably. Um,
Right.
but am I happy with like the two results I did as close together as those races are? Yeah, I mean that was kind of my goal one of the goals for the year is to race those two hard. So so yeah, I mean it's kind of a fun thing. I encourage people to if you like both those styles of races, give it a go, because it's also fun that you go to Big M for coast to coast. It's like
Yeah.
you spend all day at Big M for Lumberjack, and then a week later you're back there in a whole different situation towards the end of coast to coast. So that's kind of a cool element to those two races together.
Yeah, and I don't know if like with me doing coast to coast, now 6 times like that, I just feel so much more comfortable. But like, yeah, when you get to that point, because you were there a week earlier, it's a point in the race where you're probably struggling, but then because it's somewhat familiar, it's a little more calming, and helps you get through that, at least for me.
Yeah, yeah. It was for me too. Like the really unique thing about coast to coast is, or fun or enjoyable, is like you get through these spots and you recognize them, especially as a first timer going through the route. Like you go over 115 and I'm like, oh, this is how I go to Traverse City every time I go to I know exactly where I am right now. Or you'll go through a little town, you're like, I know this town. Like I'm at this point in the map already. This is cool. Like, oh, Hoxeyville. Oh, Wellston. Oh, this. It's cool to start checking off those little spots or little parts and be like, wow, I'm totally on the other side of the mitten right now, and that's a pretty cool feeling. And then Big M is a big like, I know it. I know where it is, and going into it, I knew the road. Like, okay, I'm on. This is like Udell Hills or whatever that road is. Like, I'm close. And then going in, so yeah, it's kind of neat to see those points and kind of check them off and get closer and closer to Ludington. But cool, man. I want to see if there's any other thing on my notes, but no, I think we kind of talked through everything. I basically just want to talk about aero bars. That's all I wanted to do.
we got there. We don't have an answer yet. So that's there's no answer. And I think it's cool. I'm super glad you were out there for your first time. I think that's what kind of makes this Michigan scene so cool, is like, people like you and everybody that keeps showing up, and you never know how the day is going to work out. And it's a fun like scene to be part of. That's for sure.
Yeah. And, I think I asked you, like, every year tends to be super unique unto itself, whether it's hot, whether it's sandy, whether it's rainy, whether it's what. And it was one of these races where I finished and I had to think to myself, would I do that again? But I think sitting here right now, I don't know if I'd want to do it in the rain again, but I would like to give a good crack at it in a dry year. That's for sure. So I don't think it's going to be my last coast to coast.
Good.
But yeah. Oh man. Well, good race. What's up next for you this year? What do you got next?
I'm gonna head up to the UP for the Crusher.
Oh, are you doing mass start?
The mass start. Yep.
Yeah,
mass start Crusher.
I'll be there.
You're gonna do mass start too?
I am doing mass start.
Okay.
I will be riding with my buddy Scott, and Crusher is the only thing that he needs for his Triple Crown, for pole roll, Crusher, Margie Gessick, and so we're gonna ride together. We're gonna get to the finish and get him his Triple Crown. So that's a plan for Crusher.
What bike are you using?
I'm gonna ride my mountain bike.
Your mountain bike.
Yeah. Okay. Just knowing probably the pace that we'll be riding and how long of a day it'll be. Like I think mountain bike is what I'll choose. Now, did you do the mass start last year?
Yes.
And I'm assuming you rode Bo Jackson?
Yes. Yep. The guy that won was on a mountain bike though. Mountain mountain bike with aero bars.
That's a whole other. Oh my god, that's a whole other thing.
Right. And but it's a completely different course this year. I mean, I think towards the end it's the same. And but I yeah, it's completely different.
What about what? I mean, it's different than any of the Crusher stuff that I rode. I mean, that first year Crusher, you did that, or you know the going up towards Lance and all that. You go kind of north of Marquette, but this is all like south of Munising, so it's a completely different area. But what about that route? Would people want to ride a mountain bike versus a gravel bike? Is it sand? Is it just sand or?
I mean, last year it was like super tame, almost like kind of borderline like too much pavement, you know?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so it was last year I would have been fine on the bike, my Thunderhawk that I use for coast to coast. My original thought was to use, you know, that bike again, which has like 48 tires on it.
Yeah.
So I'm still up in the air about it. What I'll actually use.
You had slicks on, didn't you, for coast to coast?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
I thought so. Were you happy with that?
Yeah, totally fine. Like no issues.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of have like file tread, but they were only 45, so that's all I can get on my gravel bike. It's
Okay.
45.
And I think that's enough for that race, even on a sandy year.
Yeah, yeah. But cool. Mass start. Anything
Cool.
else? Anything else coming up or?
And then cyclocross. We got to get you out there for some cyclocross still. I know you can run a little bit, so
I might come out just for fun, do something like that. Yeah, but I'd be so bad. I don't know. I think that's probably why you do cyclocross, to get better at handling and
yeah.
technical stuff. But I'm so bad at that.
It'll make you a better cyclist. I promise.
For sure. All right. Cool, man. Thanks for doing this.
Cool. Yeah, thank you.
Great ride on Saturday, and
You too.
we'll see each other up at Crusher.
Awesome. Okay, have a good one, man.
Yeah, you too.
Okay, see ya.
The Dirty Chain Podcast is a Michigan Midpack Media production in partnership with KOM Cycling, the source for your bike accessories and necessities. Connect with us on Instagram and Facebook at Dirty Chain Podcast. If you are enjoying the podcast, please leave us a rating and review on whatever platform you use to listen. Audio editing and original music by myself, Trevor Gibney. A huge thank you to Nick Stanko for joining me on this episode, and the entire crew that helped put on the Michigan Coast to Coast Gravel Grinder. And as always, keep your chain clean, but get your chain dirty. We will see you in the Midpack.